Pay attention to this man. His name is Witold Pilecki, 39 years old, a father of two, an officer in the Polish cavalry. In September 1940, he did something that no human being had ever done before, and no one has ever done since. While millions were trying to escape the Nazi war machine, Witold Pilecki walked straight into it. He kissed his wife goodbye. He walked out onto a street in Warsaw during a German roundup, and he raised his hand. He volunteered to be a prisoner in Auschwitz. He wasn't a victim. He was a spy, and his mission was to infiltrate the most terrifying place on earth, build a resistance army from the inside, and broadcast the truth to the world. After this moment, he would descend into a nightmare that would strip him of his name, his rank, and his humanity. But he would not break that. To understand why a man would choose to walk into hell, you first have to understand the world that was burning around him. September 1940. Warsaw, Poland. The city is a skeleton. The Luftwaffe bombings of '39 have turned entire districts into rubble. The streets are patrolled by the Wehrmacht and the SS. The air smells of smoke, unwashed bodies, and fear. Poland has ceased to exist on the map. It has been carved up between Hitler and Stalin. But underground, the heart of the nation is still beating. In basements, in back rooms of cafes, in bombed-out apartments, the Polish underground state is forming. Witold Pilecki is one of its architects. He doesn't look like a spy from a movie. He looks like an intellectual, a man with a high forehead, intense, thoughtful eyes, and a quiet demeanor. Before the war, he was a landowner. He farmed. He painted. He wrote poetry. He raised his son and daughter on an estate in the countryside. He was a man of peace who had been forced into war. But beneath that gentle exterior lies a core of tempered steel. Pilecki is a patriot of the old school. For him, honor, God, country aren't just words on a flag. They're a code of conduct that demands absolute sacrifice. In the summer of 1940, a new name starts circulating in the whispers of the underground. Auschwitz. The Germans call it Auschwitz. At this point in history, the world doesn't know what Auschwitz is. The gas chambers haven't been built yet. The industrial machinery of the Holocaust is just gearing up. To the Allies, to the resistance, even to the people of Warsaw, it is just a transit camp, a prison for political dissidents, a place where people are sent for quarantine. But the reports coming out are disturbing. People go in, and then silence follows. Strange telegrams arrive for families. Died of heart failure. Died of pneumonia. Shot while escaping. The numbers don't add up. The resistance suspects that something much darker is happening behind the barbed wire. They need intelligence. They need eyes and ears on the ground. They need to know if they should attack it, if they can liberate it, or if they should warn the world. But you can't just send a spy into a concentration camp. You can't parachute in. You can't forge papers to get a job there. There's only one way in. You have to become a victim. The proposal comes during a secret meeting of the TAP, the secret Polish army. His superiors are hesitant. It sounds like suicide. To voluntarily enter a Nazi prison camp? It's madness. But Pilecki insists. He argues that it is the only way. He proposes a plan so audacious it borders on insanity. He will let himself be caught in a Lepanka, a street roundup where the SS grabs random civilians to fill quotas for forced labor or prison. Once inside, he will not just survive. He will work. He will organize the prisoners. He will gather intelligence. and he will find a way to send it out. He is not ordered to go. Let's be very clear about this. He volunteers. Take a moment to process the weight of that decision. He has a wife, Maria. He has 2 young children, Andre and Zofia. He has a life he loves. He knows that the chances of returning are close to 0. He knows that even if he survives the Germans, the camp itself, typhus, starvation, exhaustion, will likely kill him. But he looks at the photos of his children, and he decides that their future is worth his life. September 19th, 1940, the morning of the operation. Witold Pilecki wakes up early. He doesn't put on a uniform. He doesn't carry a gun. He doesn't carry a cyanide pill. He dresses in civilian clothes. He puts a few items in a pocket. He says goodbye to his family. He doesn't tell them where he is going, only that he has to go away for a while. He holds them tight, imprinting the feeling of them into his memory, armor for the horror to come. He walks to the Zalabor's district of Warsaw. He knows a roundup is scheduled. He finds an apartment where his cousin lives. He waits. At 6 a.m., the shouting starts. Raus! Raus! Alle raus! The heavy boots on the stairs. The banging on doors. Most men hide. They crawl in attics, under floorboards, into coal chutes. Pilecki does the opposite. When the SS storm the building, he is standing in the living room, calm, waiting. He presents his identity card. It's fake. It identifies him as Tomasz Serafinsky. From this moment on, Witold Pilecki ceases to exist. He is now prisoner 4859. He is marched out onto the street. He is herded with thousands of other men, shopkeepers, priests, students, doctors, into trucks. They're beaten with rifle butts. They're driven to a riding academy that has been turned into a temporary holding pen. For 2 days, they are held there, beaten, starved, interrogated. It is the first test. If he breaks now, if he reveals he is an officer, he will be shot immediately. He plays the part of the confused civilian perfectly. Then, they're loaded onto freight trains. Cattle cars. No windows. No seats. Just a bucket in the corner and the press of terrified bodies. The air grows hot and stale. The train lurches forward, heading southwest. Narrating this journey, we must strip away the hindsight. We know where they are going. They do not. In that dark, rattling boxcar, there's hope. Some think they're going to farm labor in Germany. Some think they're going to factory. No, one imagines the destination is an extermination of the soul. The train stops. It is night. The doors are thrown open, and the world explodes. Blinding spotlights. Screaming men in black uniforms. Dogs straining at leashes, barking ferociously. The crack of whips. Raus! Schnell! Raus! Pilecki jumps down from the train onto a gravel platform. He is blinded by the lights. He is deafened by the noise. He is hit in the face with a rifle, but before his feet even find purchase. He looks up. Through the glare, he sees a gate. Above it, a wrought iron inscription that twists in the metal like a cruel joke. Arbeit macht free. Work sets you free. He has arrived. The initiation is brutal. They are stripped naked. Their heads are shaved. They are doused in ice-cold water, then disinfectant that burns like acid. They are given striped uniforms made of rough, lice-infested wool. They are given wooden clogs that don't fit, and they are given numbers. A tattooist grabs Pilecki's arm. The needle jabs into his skin, injecting blue ink. 48, 5'9". Witold Pilecki looks at the number. He realizes, with a cold clarity, that he is no longer a man in the eyes of his captors. He is a unit of labor, an object, a thing to be used until it breaks, and then discarded. But as he stands there, shivering in the cold night air of Auschwitz, surrounded by the screams of the beaten and the smell of burning flesh, Witold Pilecki does something extraordinary. He smiles, a small, internal, invisible smile, because he is in. The Trojan horse has passed the gates. The spy is inside the fortress. The Germans think they have captured another helpless Pole. They think they have broken him. They have no idea that they have just let the most dangerous man in Poland into their most secret facility. They have no idea that prisoner 4859 is about to start a war. But first, he has to survive the night. The guards, the capos, are criminals brought from German prisons to terrorize the political prisoners. They are murderers, rapists, sadists given absolute power. They walk through the ranks, swinging clubs, looking for anyone who stands out, anyone who looks weak, anyone who looks strong. Pilecki makes himself small. He makes himself invisible. He observes. He is an intelligence officer, and this is his new battlefield. He is mapping the terrain. He sees the electric fences. He sees the watchtowers with their machine guns. He sees the crematorium chimney in the distance, though he doesn't yet know what it is for. He sees the eyes of the other prisoners. Terror, despair, madness. He knows his first task isn't sabotage. It isn't radio transmission. It is survival. And to survive, he needs allies. He begins to scan the faces around him, looking for men he can trust, men with the spark of resistance still burning in their eyes. The mission has begun, and the odds are thousands to 1 against him. Auschwitz, winter 1940. The temperature drops to 20 degrees below zero. The wind sweeping off the Vistula River cuts through the thin, striped uniforms like a razor. For most prisoners, survival is a matter of hours. The caloric intake is set at roughly 1,000 calories a day for men doing heavy labor. It is a mathematical formula for death. The body consumes its own muscle, then its organs. A healthy man lasts 3 months. After that, he becomes a muselmanner, a walking corpse, vacant-eyed, waiting for the end. Witold Pilecki knows this math. He watches men die around him every single day. He sees them beaten to death for moving too slowly. He sees them drown in mud by laughing capos. He sees them throw themselves onto the electric fences just to make the pain stop. But prisoner 4859 does not die. He works. His investigation begins not with looking for clues, but with looking for souls. He is a hunter, but he is hunting for character. He works hauling rocks. He works pushing wheelbarrows of gravel. And while he works, he whispers. He watches how men react to a shared piece of bread. He watches who helps a fallen comrade and who looks away. He is vetting them. The first recruit is Colonel Vladislav Cermaki. Pilecki finds him in the blocks. They speak in code, eyes darting to the door, watching for the capos. Pilecki reveals his mission. Cermaki doesn't laugh. He joins. Then comes Vladislav Deering, a doctor. Then Stanislaw Du Bois, a socialist politician. Pilecki is building an army under the noses of the SS. He calls it the ZOW, the Union of Military Organization. But Pilecki is an intelligence officer. He knows that in a place like Auschwitz, secrecy is oxygen. If the Gestapo finds one name, they will torture it out of him, and the whole network will collapse. So he invents a structure of brilliant, paranoid complexity. The system of fives. Each member of the resistance knows only 5 other people. They form a cell. That cell knows nothing of the other cells. Pilecki is the top of the pyramid, the only one who sees the whole picture. If a man is caught, he can only betray his immediate circle. The infection is contained. The organism survives. This isn't just theory. It is a necessity written in blood. One night, Pilecki contracts pneumonia. In Auschwitz, this is usually a death sentence. If you cannot work, you are sent to the hospital block. And in 1940, the hospital is just a waiting room for the crematorium. The doctors there often kill patients with phenol injections to the heart to clear the beds. Pilecki is burning with fever. He is delirious. He collapses, but the network he built catches him. The doctor in the hospital is a ZOW member. He doesn't inject Pilecki. He hides him. He gives him extra rations stolen from the kitchen. Other members cover for him at roll call, propping up his numbers. 4 days, Pilecki hovers between life and death. And in his fever dreams, he sees the true nature of the enemy he is fighting. It isn't just war. It isn't just occupation. It is a systematic, industrial attempt to erase a people. When he recovers, he is weaker, gaunt, a shadow of the cavalry officer he was. But his resolve is harder than diamond. He returns to the blocks. The ZOW expands. It infiltrates every corner of the camp. They get men into the kitchen to steal food for the sick. They get men into the clothing warehouse to steal warm sweaters for the winter. They get men into the camp administration office, the Schreibstube, where they can alter records and save men from selection lists. Pilecki is running a shadow government inside a concentration camp, but his primary mission is intelligence. He needs to tell Warsaw what is happening here. The first reports are smuggled out in the most primitive ways possible. Notes sewn into the lining of laundry being sent to town for cleaning. Messages hidden in the hollowed-out heels of boots. But these are just fragments. Pilecki needs to send data. Hard numbers. He starts counting. He counts the arrivals. The trains rolling in at night. The number of people in each car. He counts the departures. The bodies piled on carts. The smoke rising from a chimney. He documents the methods of execution. The gymnastic torture, where men are hung by their wrists behind their backs until their shoulders dislocate. The standing cells, stone boxes 1 yard square, where 4 men are forced to stand all night, suffocating before being sent to work the next day. He is building a dossier of hell. But the Nazis are evolving too. The villain in this story isn't a single man. It is the system, constantly upgrading its capacity for murder. In 1941, the nature of the camp changes. It shifts from a brutal prison for Poles to something else. Russian POWs arrive. Thousands of them. They are treated worse than animals. They're starved until they resort to cannibalism. And then the SS uses them for experiments. Pilecki watches from the shadows as the SS tests a new method of killing. They don't use bullets. Bullets are expensive. They use a pesticide, a crystalline powder called Zyklon B. He sees the bodies carried out of Block 11. He sees the efficiency, and he realizes with a jolt of horror that Auschwitz is about to become a factory. The raw material is human life. The product is ash. He needs to escalate. Notes and laundry are not enough. He needs a voice. He needs to scream the truth loud enough for London to hear. He needs a radio. This is the turning point of Block 2. The shift from passive survival to active technological warfare. Imagine the audacity. Building a radio transmitter inside a high-security prison camp. If a guard finds a single wire, a single vacuum tube, it is instant death. Not just for Pilecki, but for his entire block. But Pilecki has an asset. A man named Captain Dr. the Ladislaw Deering, and others, engineers, technicians, who have been swept up in the roundups. They begin to scavenge. This is the breadcrumbs phase of the investigation, but reversed. They aren't following clues. They are stealing components. A broken voltmeter from a workshop. Copper wire stripped from a generator. A vacuum tube stolen from an SS storage locker. It takes 7 months. 7 months of heart-stopping risks. 7 months of smuggling parts under shirts, inside loaves of bread, inside false bottoms of buckets. They assemble the transmitter in Block 25. It is a hospital block for contagious diseases. The SS guards are terrified of typhus, so they rarely enter. It is the perfect hiding spot. November 1941, the moment of truth. Pilecki and his team crowd into the small, dark room in Block 25. They have posted lookouts. The wire antenna is strung up the chimney. The tension is unbearable. If they turn it on, the Germans might detect the signal. They have direction-finding trucks, just like in a hunt for spies in France. Pilecki nods. The technician flips the switch. The tubes glow warm and orange in the dark. A hum, static, and then a hand begins to tap on a makeshift key. They are broadcasting. For the first time in history, a voice is speaking from inside the Holocaust. But is anyone listening? Pilecki dictates the message. He doesn't use emotional language. He uses military precision. Auschwitz, extermination, daily death count, hundreds, gas chambers operational, send help, bomb the tracks. He sends the reports to the Home Army headquarters in Warsaw. From there, they are relayed to London, to the Polish government in exile, to the British command. Pilecki waits. He expects a reaction. He expects Allied bombers to darken the sky. He expects a paratrooper assault to liberate the camp. He has an army of 1,000 men inside, ready to rise up and fight if they get support from the air. He waits and waits. The winter of 41 turns into the spring of 42. The snow melts, revealing the layers of bodies in the mud. The trains keep coming. Now, they're filled with Jews from all over Europe. France, Holland, Hungary. The crematoriums run day and night. The sky is permanently gray with human ash. And from London, silence. The British intelligence analysts read the reports. They see the numbers. They read about the gas chambers. And they put the files in a drawer labeled exaggerated. They don't believe him. It is too monstrous. It is too efficient. It sounds like propaganda. No civilized nation, they argue, could create a factory for killing millions. It isn't possible. This is the tragedy of Witold Pilecki. He is the perfect spy. He has gathered the ultimate intelligence. He has risked everything to transmit it. But the world is deaf. Pilecki feels the despair gnawing at him. He is screaming into the void. His army is ready, but they have no weapons. His radio is working, but no one answers. He realizes that reports are not enough. Data is not enough. The world needs proof. Tangible, undeniable proof. Or the world needs him to do something even more drastic. The SS is tightening security. They are installing new listening devices to catch rogue radio signals. They are conducting more searches. The noose is tightening around Block 25. Pilecki makes a decision. If he cannot bring the Allies to Auschwitz, he must break out of Auschwitz and go to them. He must look them in the eye and force them to believe. But escaping Auschwitz is impossible. The camp is surrounded by 2 rings of electrified barbed wire. There are machine gun towers every 50 meters. There are dog patrols. There are 3,000 SS guards. And even if you get past the wire, you are in German-occupied territory hundreds of miles from safety. Only 144 people have ever escaped successfully. Hundreds have died trying. Pilecki looks at his inner circle. He looks at the fives. He realizes that to leave, he will have to abandon his men. He will have to leave the ZOW behind. It is a moral agony, but staying means watching the slaughter continue. He starts a plan, not an uprising, an escape, but he needs a catalyst. He needs an opportunity. And ironically, the SS gives him one. They assign him to the night shift at the camp bakery. The bakery is outside the main fence, but still heavily guarded. It is a slim chance, a suicidal chance. But for a man who volunteered for hell, suicidal is just another Tuesday. 1942 bleeds into 1943. The world inside the wire has changed. It is no longer just a prison. It is a slaughterhouse. Pilecki and his men make a hard choice. The radio transmitter, their only link to the outside world, their mechanical hope, must be dismantled. The risk has become too great. The German direction-finding units are getting closer. One night, they take it apart component by component, burying the pieces in different sectors of the camp. With the radio gone, the silence returns. A heavy, suffocating blanket of isolation. This is the phase of false leads. For Pilecki, the false lead isn't a wrong suspect. It is the false hope of rescue. He has sent his reports. He has outlined the plan. He has told the Home Army in Warsaw, "We have the manpower. We have the will. Drop weapons. Attack the walls. We will take the camp from the inside." He waits for the signal. Every time an Allied plane flies high overhead, a rare occurrence, hearts stop in the barracks. Is this it? Is this the beginning? But the planes keep flying. They are heading to bomb factories in Silesia. They are not stopping for the dying men in striped pajamas. The despair grows. It is a physical weight, heavier than the rocks they carry in the quarry. The villain of our story, the SS machinery, is becoming more efficient, more paranoid. The political department, the camp Gestapo, is intensifying its hunt for the internal resistance. They know something is going on. They see the discipline in certain blocks. They see the way food disappears from the kitchens. They start picking off Pilecki's men. Colonel Cermacki is taken. Then Dr. Deering. They aren't executed immediately. They are taken to Block 11, the death block. The bunker. Pilecki watches them go. He knows what happens in Block 11. The Boger swing, where men are suspended upside down and beaten until their internal organs rupture. The needle injections. The wall of death in the courtyard. He waits for them to break. He waits for the SS to kick down the door of his block and call out Tomasz Serafinsky. He carries a razor blade in his pocket, ready to slit his own wrists rather than betray the network under torture. But the men die silent. The system of fives holds. The firewall works. But the cost is devastating. Pilecki is losing his friends, his brothers, the men who helped him hold onto his humanity. And then there is the smoke. By 1943, the new camp at Birkenau, just a few kilometers away, is fully operational. The trains arrive daily now. Jews from Hungary, Greece, Italy. Pilecki watches from the roof of a building he is repairing. He sees the columns of women and children walking toward the birch forest. He sees them vanish, and an hour later, he sees the black, oily smoke billowing from the chimneys. The smell is inescapable. It coats the throat. It settles on the skin. It is the smell of burning fat and bone. This is the deepest despair, the realization that his mission to organize, to report, is failing to stop the machine. He is documenting the apocalypse, but he cannot stop it. He realizes that the home army isn't coming. They don't have the strength to attack a fortress guarded by 3,000 SS men. The Allies aren't coming. They don't believe the reports. He is alone. If the truth is to survive, he has to carry it out himself. The plan to escape begins to crystallize, but it is frail, ridden with variables that could go wrong. It relies on a breadcrumb of opportunity that the SS has unwittingly dropped. The bakery. The camp bakery is located about 2 kilometers outside the main wire. It is still guarded, but it is not surrounded by the electrified fence. Prisoners work there in shifts, baking the bread that feeds the guards and the inmates. Pilecki uses his influence in the Schreibstube, labor office, to get himself assigned to the night shift at the bakery. He handpicks 2 men to go with him, Jan Redzig and Edward Shishelsky. Both are ZOW members. Both are men who have nothing left to lose. The date is set. Easter Monday, April 26th, 1943. Why Easter? Because the guard will be distracted. They will be drunk. They will be celebrating. But even the best plans in Auschwitz are subject to the cruelty of chance. A week before the scheduled escape, Pilecki falls ill again. His body is rebelling. The malnutrition has stripped his bones. If he is too weak to run, he compromises the others. He forces himself to eat double rations, stolen from the dying, a moral compromise that burns him, but he accepts it as the cost of the mission. Then a new threat. The SS rotates the guards at the bakery. The lax, older guards are replaced by younger, fanatical troops. The window of opportunity is closing. April 26th arrives. It is a rainy, miserable night. Pilecki, Redzig, and Shishelsky are marched out of the main camp gate. They pass under the Arbeit macht free sign. Pilecki looks at it one last time. He wonders if he will ever see the other side of it, or if he will end up hanging from the gallows in the roll call square, a warning sign around his neck. Hurrah! I am back. They march to the bakery. The mud sucks at their wooden clogs. Inside the bakery, the heat is intense. The smell of yeast and flour is dizzying, a smell of life in a landscape of death. They work. They knead the dough. They load the ovens. The plan is simple, brutal, and relies on a split second of timing. There is a heavy wooden door at the back of the bakery. It is locked from the outside with a metal bar and a padlock. But Pilecki has learned a detail. A loose screw. a rusted hinge, or so he hopes. The false lead. Here is the illusion of security. The guards are inside the bakery with them, watching. But they are bored. They are waiting for the shift to end. 2 a.m., the darkest part of the night. Pilecki signals his men. They have prepared a key, a makeshift tool fashioned from a piece of iron stolen from the metal shop. One of the guards walks to the front of the building to smoke a cigarette. The other is dozing in a chair, his Mauser rifle across his knees. This is it. Pilecki moves to the back door. He moves silently, masking the sound of his footsteps with the rhythmic clanging of the metal baking trays being stacked by Shishelski. He reaches the door. He inserts the tool. He twists. Nothing happens. The bolt is jammed. Panic flares. If the guard turns around, if he sees Pilecki at the door, it is over. A bullet in the back of the head. Pilecki pushes harder. The metal groans. It is a sound that seems as loud as a gunshot in the quiet bakery. The dozing guard stirs. He grunts. He shifts his weight. Pilecki freezes. He holds his breath, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He waits. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The guard settles back. He begins to snore. Pilecki tries again. He puts his entire body weight, all his remaining strength, into the torque. Snap! The bolt slides back. The door is unlocked. But they aren't out yet. They have to open the door, run across the open yard, cut the telephone line, and disappear into the woods before the guard at the front realizes they are gone. Pilecki signals the others. They leave the dough. They leave the ovens. They gather at the door. Pilecki pushes it open. The cold, wet air of the night hits them. It smells of freedom. It smells of danger. They burst out. They run. Not the slow shuffle of prisoners, but the desperate sprint of hunted animals. Behind them, a shout. The guard is woken up. Halt! Halt, or I shoot. The crack of a rifle. A bullet whizzes past Pilecki's ear, close enough to hear the angry buzz. They don't look back. They hit the tree line. They're in the woods. But the woods are not safety. The woods are the dead end. They are hundreds of miles from Warsaw, in territory crawling with patrols, wearing striped uniforms with shaved heads. They have no food, no map, and the entire SS garrison of Auschwitz is waking up behind them. The siren begins to wail, a low, mournful sound that rises to a scream, echoing across the valley. It is the alarm, the Great Escape siren. Every dog in the camp is being unleashed. Every motorcycle is being started. The hunt is on. Pilecki runs. His lungs burn. His legs scream. But he is smiling again, because for the first time in 947 days, he is not prisoner 4859. He is Witold Pilecki, and he is at war. But the night is long, and the investigation, the hunt for the escapees, is just beginning. The Nazis are efficient. They have trucks. They have telegraphs. They have the population terrified into submission. Pilecki has 2 men and a stolen compass. They run into the dark, heading east toward the Vistula. But they don't know that the river is flooded. They don't know that the bridges are guarded. They are running straight into a trap. And as the sun begins to rise, turning the sky a blood red, Pilecki hears the sound he dreads most, the baying of hounds. The woods are not a sanctuary. They're a cage without bars. April 27th, 1943. Dawn. The adrenaline of the escape has faded, replaced by the crushing reality of their situation. Pilecki, Redzig, and Shishelsky are three men in striped prison uniforms, starving, armed with nothing but a stolen compass and a packet of tobacco. Behind them, the sirens of Auschwitz are still wailing, a sound that seems to vibrate in their very bones. They can hear the motorcycles on the perimeter roads. They can hear the dogs. This is the dead end of the physical escape. They are surrounded. To the south, the mountains. To the north, the industrial zones swarming with patrols. To the east, the Vistula River swollen with spring rain. Pilecki takes charge. He is no longer prisoner 4859. He is a cavalry officer again. He knows they cannot outrun the dogs. They have to outthink them. They scatter the tobacco on their trail. It is an old soldier's trick, meant to confuse the hound's sense of smell. It is a desperate gamble. If it fails, they will be torn apart before the guards even raise their rifles. They move through the dense undergrowth, avoiding paths. Every snapping twig sounds like a gunshot. Every bird call sounds like a signal. They reach the banks of the Sola River. The water is freezing, a churning torrent of gray sludge. There is no bridge. To cross is to risk drowning. To stay is to die. They wade in. The water rises to their chests. The current tries to drag them under, pulling at their exhausted limbs. Pilecki grips Redzig's arm. They form a human chain, fighting the river, fighting the hypothermia that clawed at them in the Pyrenees years before in a different life. They scramble up the opposite bank, shivering, soaked, their teeth chattering so hard it hurts. But they have crossed. The water breaks the scent trail. The dogs are behind them, but the humans are still hunting. For days, they move like ghosts. They sleep in ditches, covering themselves with dead leaves. They eat budding leaves from trees and muddy water. They are hallucinations of men, skeletal figures moving through a landscape of fear. They encounter a farmer. He is driving a cart. He sees them. He sees the shaved heads. He sees the striped rags they are trying to hide under stolen coats. This is the moment of doubt. In occupied Poland, a farmer who turns in an escaped Jew or a prisoner gets a reward: vodka, sugar, maybe a pair of boots. A farmer who hides them gets a bullet in the head, and his farm burned to the ground. The farmer stops his cart. He looks at Pilecki. Pilecki looks back, his eyes burning with a mixture of defiance and plea. The farmer nods. He points to a barn. He doesn't ask for a reward. He gives them bread and warm milk. He gives them civilian clothes, rough, patched trousers and shirts that smell of sweat and earth. They shed the stripes. They bury the prison uniforms in the mud. It is a ritual. They are burying the numbers. They are reclaiming their names. But the journey is far from over. As they move deeper into the general government, the Nazi-occupied zone, Pilecki faces a new kind of dead end. He is shot. It happens near a forest clearing. A German patrol spots them. A shout, a volley of rifle fire. Pilecki feels a hammer blow to his shoulder. The bullet tears through muscle. He stumbles, but adrenaline forces him forward. They dive into the thicket, losing the patrol in the gathering dark. He is wounded. He is infected. He is exhausted. But he keeps walking because he is carrying something more heavy than his injury. He is carrying the truth. It takes them weeks to reach Warsaw. They travel over 100 kilometers on foot, dodging checkpoints, riding the buffers of freight trains, blending into the misery of the occupied population. August 1943. Warsaw. Pilecki walks into the city he left 3 years ago. It has changed. The ghetto, the walled district where the Jews were imprisoned, is gone. It is a smoking ruin. The uprising in the ghetto has been crushed. The silence of the dead hangs over the city. He makes contact with the home army. The reunion is not a celebration, it is a shock. His commanders thought he was dead. When he walks into the safe house, gaunt, scarred, with the eyes of a man who has seen the end of the world, they look at him as if he is a ghost. And then Pilecki delivers his payload. He sits down and writes. He writes for days. He pours everything on a paper. The numbers, the methods, the gas chambers, the medical experiments, the names of the victims, the names of the executioners. This document becomes known as Witold's report. It is one of the most important intelligence documents of the 20th century. It is the first comprehensive eyewitness account of the Holocaust from the inside. He hands it to the Home Army Command. He expects outrage. He expects mobilization. He says, I have an army inside. We have a plan. We can coordinate an attack. You attack the walls from the outside. We attack the guard from the inside. We can liberate the camp. This is the moment where the story shifts from physical survival to psychological tragedy. This is the true lingering doubt. The Home Army commanders read the report. They are horrified, but they shake their heads. We cannot attack, they say. We don't have the strength. Auschwitz is a fortress. The Germans have thousands of troops. If we attack, they will massacre every prisoner before we even breach the wire. It is a suicide mission. Pilecki argues. He pleads. They are dying every day. Thousands. We have to try. But the answer is no. Then the report is smuggled to London, to the Polish government in exile, to the British, to the Americans. Pilecki waits, just as he waited inside the camp for the bombs that never fell. The response from the Allies is the ultimate dead end. The British intelligence analysts read the report. They see the figures, millions dead, gas chambers, industrialized slaughter, and they hesitate. It is 1943. The Allies are winning, but the war is far from over. They are focused on bombing German industry. They are focused on the invasion of Italy. Auschwitz is a side issue. Furthermore, some officials simply do not believe it. The scale of the crime described by Pilecki is too vast for the bureaucratic mind to comprehend. They suspect exaggeration. They suspect Polish propaganda designed to drag the Allies into a distraction. Or worse, they believe it, but they decide that saving Jews is not a strategic priority. Pilecki sits in Warsaw, listening to the BBC on a clandestine radio. He waits to hear the news that the bombers are on their way. He waits to hear that the world has woken up. But the radio plays music. It gives news of battles in the Pacific. It talks about the weather. The silence from the West is louder than the screams in Block 11. Pilecki begins to doubt. Not his actions. He knows he did the right thing. But he doubts the very nature of the civilization he is fighting for. He volunteered for hell to save humanity, only to find that humanity might not care. I have tried, he writes in a letter to a friend. I have given everything, but it seems we are speaking to a stone wall. This is the darkest moment of the true crime story. The investigator has solved the case. He has identified the killer. He has found the bodies. He has presented the evidence. And the judge has walked out of the courtroom. But Witold Pilecki is not a man who stops. If the world won't listen to his words, he will force them to see his actions. August 1st, 1944. The Warsaw Uprising begins. The Polish underground rises up to liberate their capital from the Germans before the Russians arrive. It is a desperate, heroic, doomed struggle. Pilecki, still weak from his time in the camp, still carrying the bullet wound in his shoulder, volunteers again. He doesn't fight as Captain Pilecki, the hero of Auschwitz. He fights as a common soldier. He commands a unit in the city center. He fights in the ruins. He fights in the sewers. For 63 days, Warsaw burns. The Germans methodically destroy the city, block by block. The Russians wait on the other side of the river, watching, letting the Nazis do their dirty work for them. Pilecki fights with a cold fury. He is fighting the same enemy he fought in the camp. The uniforms are the same. The brutality is the same. But as the ammunition runs out, as the food runs out, as the city crumbles into dust, Pilecki realizes that he is about to be captured again. He has survived the camp. He has survived the escape. He has survived the uprising. And now, he faces a choice. He can flee. He can disappear into the countryside again. He is an expert at it. But his men are surrendering. They're being marched to POW camps in Germany. Pilecki looks at them. He looks at the ruins of his country. And for the second time in his life, Witold Pilecki chooses not to run. He surrenders. He walks into captivity with his men, because a captain does not leave his soldiers. He is sent to a POW camp in Murnau, Germany. He spends the rest of the war behind wire. But compared to Auschwitz, Murnau is a holiday. He survives. May 1945. The Americans liberate the camp. The war is over. Hitler is dead. The 1,000-year Reich has burned to ash. Pilecki is free. He should be a hero. He should be going home to parades, to medals, to his wife and children. But the dead end is not over. The villain has changed faces. The Nazis are gone, but in their place, a new shadow has fallen over Poland. The Red Army, the Soviets. Stalin does not want heroes like Witold Pilecki. He does not want men who believe in a free Poland. He wants obedience. Pilecki is in Italy with the Polish II Corps. He is safe. He could stay there. He could go to London. He could bring his family out. But intelligence reaches him. The Soviets are arresting home army soldiers. They are torturing them. They are deporting them to Siberia. They are turning Poland into a puppet state. General Anders, the Polish commander, needs someone to go back. Someone to infiltrate the new communist Poland. Someone to gather intelligence on Soviet atrocities. Someone who knows how to build a network under the nose of a totalitarian regime. He looks at Pilecki, and Pilecki, the man who volunteered for Auschwitz, the man who survived the unsurvivable, nods. "I will go," he says. He's going back into the fire. But this time, the enemy isn't wearing a swastika. He is wearing a red star. And this time, there will be no escape. Warsaw, 1945. The war is officially over. The statues of Hitler have been blown up. The swastikas have been burned. In the newsreels playing in cinemas around the world, Poland is liberated. But Witold Pilecki knows the truth. Liberation is a lie. He is back in Warsaw, but he is a ghost again. He is living under a false name, Roman Yazierski. He works a cover job in a warehouse, but his real work happens in the shadows. He is documenting the new occupation. The investigation has entered its final, most dangerous phase. Pilecki isn't counting bodies in a gas chamber anymore. He is counting the disappearances of his own friends. The new enemy is the UB, Urzad Bezpieczeństwa, the Ministry of Public Security. They're the Polish communists trained by the Soviet NKVD. They don't wear black SS uniforms. They wear plain clothes or Polish uniforms with the wrong insignia. They speak Polish, but they take orders from Moscow. Their mandate is simple: erase the heroes. Anyone who fought for the Home Army, anyone who was loyal to the London government, anyone like Pilecki is now an enemy of the people. They are branded cursed soldiers. Pilecki builds a new network. It is the system of fives all over again, but this time the streets are even more dangerous because the enemy looks exactly like the victim. He gathers intelligence on the rigged elections. He documents the arrests of high school students who write anti-communist slogans on walls. He compiles lists of men sent east to the gulags. This is the breakthrough phase of our story, but it is a breakthrough in reverse. It isn't the hero finding the villain. It is the villain finding the hero. The UB is methodical. They are cracking the resistance cells one by one. They use torture methods that make the Gestapo look like amateurs. They don't just want to kill the body. They want to break the mind, to force the heroes to confess to being traitors, to dirty their own legacy before they die. In 1946, Pilecki receives an order from General Anders in Italy. It is a lifeline. Your identity is at risk. The net is closing. Evacuate immediately to the west. Pilecki looks at the order. He looks at his wife, Maria. He looks at his children, who are growing up in a city ruled by fear. He could leave. He has done his duty 10 times over. No one would blame him. But he refuses. He sends a message back. There is no one to take my place. I cannot leave while my men are still in prison. He stays. He seals his fate. And then the breadcrumbs lead the wrong way. The UB arrests a courier, a young man, terrified, beaten for days. He gives up a name. Not Pilecki's name, but a contact. That contact leads to another. The key detail in this investigation is a notebook. A small, seemingly insignificant notebook containing encrypted addresses. The UB cryptographers break the code. May 8th, 1947. Pilecki is visiting a contact in an apartment on Panska Street. He doesn't know the contact has been compromised. He doesn't know the building is surrounded. He knocks on the door. It opens. But it isn't his friend standing there. It is a UB agent with a pistol. Witold Pilecki. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't run. There is nowhere to run. I am he says. They handcuff him. They drag him out. This time, there is no voluntary walk into the truck. This is a capture. He is taken to Rakowiecka prison. It is a grim, red brick fortress in the Mokoto district. It is the heart of the communist terror apparatus. The irony is shattering. 7 years earlier, he volunteered to go to Auschwitz to fight for Poland. Now he is in a Polish prison, arrested by Poles, accused of betraying Poland. This leads to the confrontation. But this is not a confrontation between a detective and a suspect. It is a confrontation between a man of honor and a system that has none. The interrogators are Colonel Ryzansky and Colonel Kroksinski. They're sadists. Their job is not to find the truth. They know the truth. They know Pilecki is a hero. Their job is to rewrite the truth. They need him to confess to being a spy for imperialist powers. They need him to say he was planning to assassinate communist leaders. They begin the investigation. For 6 months, Witold Pilecki descends into a hell deeper than Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, the enemy was clear. They were Nazis. They wanted to kill you because you were a Pole. There was a solidarity among the prisoners. In Rakowiecka, the enemy speaks your language. They tell you that you are the traitor. They tell you that your country hates you. They tear out his fingernails. They break his ribs. They crush his nose. They keep him in a dark cell, standing in water for days. But Pilecki does not break. He refuses to sign the false confession. He refuses to name his fellow agents who are still free. He protects the network with his silence, just as he did in Block 11. However, the physical toll is catastrophic. During a brief visit allowed to his wife, Maria, he is carried into the room by 2 guards because he can no longer walk. His collarbone is broken. His face is a mask of bruises. He leans close to her. He whispers a sentence that should chill every person watching this video to the bone. A sentence that defines the magnitude of his suffering. Maria, he says, Auschwitzem to Bila Igraska. Auschwitz was just a trifle. Think about that. The man who saw the gas chambers, the man who survived 3 years of the Holocaust, is telling you that a communist prison in peacetime is worse. Because in Auschwitz, he had hope. He had a mission. Here, he has only the crushing weight of betrayal. The breakthrough of the investigation is complete. The UB has their man. They have fabricated the evidence. They have the script written for the show trial. The villain, the totalitarian state, has won the physical battle. They have the hero in chains. But they have not won the war. Because Pilecki, broken and bleeding, still holds the moral high ground. He knows that history is watching. He knows that someday the truth will come out. He prepares for his final battle, not with a gun, but with his voice. He prepares to stand in a courtroom and face his accusers. He knows he is going to die. The verdict has been written before the trial even begins. But Witold Pilecki has one last duty to perform. He has to die well. He has to show them that they can kill the man, but they cannot kill the symbol. The trial is set for March 1948. It will be a mockery of justice, a theater of lies, and Pilecki is ready to play his part. March 3rd, 1948. The Regional Military Court in Warsaw. This is the confrontation, but it is a confrontation staged for the cameras, a piece of dark theater written by Moscow. The courtroom is packed, not with a jury of peers, but with UB functionaries, party loyalists, and the press, all there to witness the public destruction of a fascist spy. Witold Pilecki sits on a wooden bench behind a low railing. He wears a ragged suit that hangs off his skeletal frame. His hands are placed carefully on his knees. If you look closely at the archival photos from this day, you will see why. His fingernails are missing. His fingers are broken. He sits perfectly still, conserving energy. Every breath is a struggle against his shattered ribs. The prosecutor is Major Czeslaw Lipinski. He is the voice of the villain. He doesn't present evidence. He spits venom. He paints Pilecki not as the hero of Auschwitz, but as a paid mercenary of the West, a traitor who sold his country to the British, a man who plotted to assassinate outstanding leaders of the People's Poland. It is a lie so grotesque, it is almost impressive. Pilecki listens. His face is impassive. When he is allowed to speak, his voice is quiet but steady. This is his confession. He admits to passing information to the West. He admits to working for General Anders. But then he delivers the line that destroys the prosecution's moral case. "I've been trying to live my life," he tells the court, "so that in the hour of my death, I would rather feel joy than fear." He denies the charges of assassination. He denies being a traitor. He frames his actions for what they were: the continuation of his service to the true Poland. He does not plead for mercy. He does not beg. He treats the court with the polite disdain of an officer dealing with unruly subordinates. But the most heartbreaking moment of the confrontation involves the witnesses. The prosecution brings in men from Pilecki's own network, men who have been broken in the dungeons of Rakowiecka, men who have been told that their wives and children will be executed if they do not testify against their commander. Pilecki watches them take the stand. He sees their trembling hands. He sees the shame in their eyes. And instead of anger, he shows them compassion. He understands the mechanics of breaking a man better than anyone in that room. He knows what was done to them. He accepts the blame. "I alone am responsible," he says, trying to shield his subordinates even as they sign his death warrant. May 15th, 1948. The verdict. The judge reads from a prepared script. Witold Pilecki is found guilty of espionage, treason, and illegal possession of weapons. The sentence: death. 3 times death. But the tragedy of Block 6 isn't just the verdict. It is the final betrayal. There is one man in Poland who could save Witold Pilecki. His name is Józef Cyrankiewicz. He is the Prime Minister of Communist Poland. He is powerful. He is untouchable. And he is a survivor of Auschwitz. Cyrankiewicz was in the camp with Pilecki. He knew about the ZOW. He knew Pilecki was the organizer. Pilecki was the man who gave Cyrankiewicz the structure that allowed him to survive. Pilecki's wife, Maria, desperate and running out of time, manages to send a letter to the Prime Minister. She begs him, "You know him. You know he is a hero. You know he volunteered. Please save him." This is the moment where the confession turns into a cover-up. Cyrankiewicz receives the letter. He has a choice. He can acknowledge the truth, that the man condemned as a traitor is actually the greatest hero of the resistance. Or he can protect his own position. If he admits he knows Pilecki, he admits that the official history of the Auschwitz resistance, which the communists are currently rewriting to feature themselves as the heroes, is a lie. If Pilecki lives, the truth lives. And the truth is dangerous to the regime. Cyrankiewicz makes his choice. He writes a note back to the court. He claims that Pilecki was an enemy of the people in the camp. He claims Pilecki worked against the resistance. He validates the execution. It is the Judas kiss, the final nail in the coffin. May 25th, 1948. The execution. It is evening at Rakowiecka prison. The sun has set. The halls are quiet. A guard unlocks the cell door. Pilecki, Rouse. Witold Pilecki stands up. He says goodbye to his cellmates. He straightens his jacket. He is walked down the corridor, down the stairs, into the basement. This is the boiler room. The floor is concrete, stained dark. There is a drain in the center. The executioner is Staff Sergeant Piotr Smyatansky. He is known as the Butcher of Mokotel. He doesn't use a firing squad. He likes to do it personally. He wears a white leather apron to protect his uniform from the blood. This is the final confrontation. The volunteer for hell versus the butcher. Pilecki is not blindfolded. He refuses. He wants to look death in the eye. He is led to a wall, but he doesn't face it. He turns. In the final seconds of his life, Witold Pilecki whispers two words. Long live. Crack. A single shot to the back of the head. The body falls. The volunteer for hell is dead. But the crime is not finished. In a standard murder investigation, the body is the primary evidence. In this political crime, the body is a liability. The UB does not return Witold Pilecki to his family. They do not allow a funeral. They do not mark a grave. They take his body in the middle of the night to the Lakska, the meadow, a dump site next to the Pulaski Military Cemetery. They throw him into a nameless pit. They throw other bodies on top of him. They cover it with lime and dirt. Then they smooth the ground over. Later, they will build a garbage dump on top of it. Their goal is damnatio memoriae, the damnation of memory. They want to erase him so completely that it will be as if he never existed. They ban his name. Mentioning Witold Pilecki becomes a crime against the state. His report on Auschwitz is confiscated and locked in the deepest vault of the secret police archives. His children are barred from higher education. His wife is hounded for decades. For 40 years, silence falls over the grave of the man who volunteered for Auschwitz. The villain, the totalitarian system, has won. They have killed the hero, buried the evidence, and rewritten the history books. They have replaced the truth with a lie, that the communists liberated Auschwitz, that the London government was a traitor, that Pilecki was a spy. It is the perfect crime, or so they think, but they forgot one thing. They forgot the lesson Pilecki taught in the camp. You can kill the man. You can burn the body. You can censor the books, but you cannot kill the truth. You can only bury it. And things that are buried have a way of rising to the surface. For 41 years, the name Witold Pilecki was a ghost story. It was whispered in private apartments in Warsaw, but never spoken aloud on the street. To speak it was to risk arrest. To print it was a crime. The communist regime built a school on top of the mass grave at the meadow. They built a parking lot. They paved over the bones of the heroes, literally cementing their version of history over the truth. But remember the principle of this channel. The truth leaves breadcrumbs. And in this case, the breadcrumbs were the memories of the people Pilecki had saved. While the Polish state erased him, the world outside began to slowly wake up. But it took decades. It wasn't until the Iron Curtain fell in 1989 that the final investigation could begin. This is the justice phase. But justice here isn't a handcuffs in jail cell moment. It is forensic. It is historical. It is spiritual. In 1990, the new democratic government of Poland initiated a review of the show trials. The Supreme Court examined the files of the 1948 trial. They looked at the evidence forged by the UB. They looked at the forced confessions. On October 1st, 1990, they issued a verdict. They annulled the sentence. They declared that Witold Pilecki had been arrested, tortured, and executed not because he was a traitor, but because he was a patriot. They stated for the record that he had preserved his military oath to the end. His name was restored. But where was the man? This brings us to the most chilling forensic investigation in modern history. In 2012, the Institute of National Remembrance, the IPN, began to dig. They went to the Pulaski Military Cemetery. They went to the edge of the grounds, to the place known as the Lakska, the meadow. They broke the asphalt. They dug through the layers of trash and lime. What they found was a crime scene frozen in time. They found hundreds of skeletons. They were stacked on top of each other, dumped like refuse. Their hands were tied behind their backs with wire. Their skulls showed the single entry wound of the executioner's bullet, the Katyn-style execution used by the Soviets and their puppets. It was a mass grave of Poland's best and bravest. Forensic anthropologists began the painstaking work of identification. They used DNA samples from the living children of the victims, including Pilecki's son, Andrei, and his daughter, Zofia, who were now elderly. They haven't found Witold's DNA match yet. The acid in the soil and the chaos of the pit make it difficult. But in a way, it almost doesn't matter. By digging up the meadow, they proved the crime. They exposed the lie. They showed the world exactly what the regime had done. And the villains? Staff Sergeant Pyotr Smyatansky, the butcher of Mokito who pulled the trigger, died of tuberculosis shortly after the execution. Major Lipinski, the prosecutor who spat venom in the courtroom, lived to be an old man. He died in 2004, just as he was about to face trial for judicial murder. He died in a hospital, comfortable, free. Josef Cyrankiewicz, the prime minister who betrayed his fellow prisoner, remained in power for decades. But his legacy is now ash. He is remembered not as a statesman, but as a Judas. Justice, in the case of Witold Pilecki, is not about the punishment of the killers. It is about the survival of the truth. In the years following the investigation, Pilecki's report, the report he wrote in 1943, the report the Allies ignored, was finally published in English. It is called The Auschwitz Volunteer Beyond Bravery. When you read it today, it doesn't read like history. It reads like a warning. It documents the slide of a civilized nation into barbarism. It documents how easily people can turn away from suffering. But it also documents something else. It documents the capacity of the human spirit to resist. In the most hellish environment ever created by man, where the air was made of smoke and the ground was made of mud and bone, Witold Pilecki did not just survive. He built, he organized, he helped, he kept his soul intact. He proved that even when you are stripped of your name, your rank, your clothes, and your hair, you still have a choice. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be a soldier. In 2006, Witold Pilecki was posthumously awarded the Order of the White Eagle, Poland's highest honor. Streets are named after him. Schools are named after him. But his true legacy isn't on a plaque. It's in the lesson he left behind. In his final report, he wrote about the difference between the prisoners who broke and the prisoners who survived. He wrote, "We have strayed, my friends, we have strayed dreadfully. We are betrayed by our own indifference." Witold Pilecki was the antidote to indifference. He saw a burning building, and instead of running away, he ran inside to tell us who started the fire. He was the only man to volunteer for Auschwitz. He was the spy who dismantled the machinery of death with a notebook and a radio. He was the father who died so his children could eventually live in a free country. At the end of his life, beaten, broken, facing a concrete wall in a damp cellar, he whispered, "Long live." He didn't get to finish the sentence, but we know how it ends. Long live Poland. Long live freedom. Long live the truth. This is the story they tried to bury under a parking lot. This is the story they tried to erase with a bullet. But as the old saying goes, they tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Witold Pilecki has risen, and now the whole world knows his name.